Howdy folks, monthly update for the month of October. The Rugby World Cup is done. So for international men's rugby at this level, we take a extended break. There is still international rugby on. There's one more week of the women's game going on. I have seen some of the kind of lower tier teams have also been in action as well. But yeah, the men's elite level of the game, done for a wee bit. There's still club rugby on. Super Rugby is still quite some way away because we're in the kind of coming into summer. So it'll be pre-season for a lot of the guys soon, or if not already. The top 14, I think, is about 4 weeks underway in France, 3 weeks for the Premiership in England, and then the URC countries, I think, are already 2 weeks into the competition. So there's still plenty of rugby on for you guys wanting to get your fix. Although I'll understand if people just kind of want to take a wee chill out. I know some of you guys will be watching the cricket. I haven't been watching the cricket, but I know some of you guys will. There's other sports going on. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, it's well into spring, so you may just be looking to get outside and go for a walk. I'll certainly be doing a bit of that. But there's a bit of rugby news to go over. Eddie Jones' saga with Aussie Rugby, the World Rugby Awards, and New Zealand Rugby complaining to World Rugby about the final. We'll go over that, plus some stats and thanks. And yeah, what can I say? Cheers for you guys for coming along. If you haven't subscribed, do me a favor. And please do that. The amount of people who say, man, I've been watching your videos for ages and I never knew I wasn't subscribed. Subscribe. I always forget to ask. I was asking for a while and then I forgot. I just got bad habits. But if you could subscribe, it helps out, man. YouTube loves all those engagements, comments and likes and all that jazz. There's been a bunch of you guys along during October with the World Cup. Makes sense. There's been interest in rugby just generally. It's the high point of the 4-year cycle. I've gotten more messages from people that I haven't heard from in donkey's years during this World Cup because they know I'm into my rugby. My old boss from the university I used to work at, Filipino lady, immigrated to New Zealand, must be 5 years ago, maybe more. Now in Australia, she was, I haven't heard from her over 12 months. She's sending me messages about the rugby. So yeah, a lot of people were following the rugby who probably don't watch a heck of a lot of rugby. It's just that one that attracts the kind of the most interest. But that period is over now, so things are certainly going to be quietening down. But as I said, there is still rugby on. Some stats for you. Most viewed videos in the month of October for this channel: France, South Africa, New Zealand, England, South Africa. There's a bit of a theme here. Guess which geography is the most registered one? It is South Africa, number 1, UK 2, Ireland 3, New Zealand 4, Australia 5, and outside the top 5, USA, France, and Canada. So you got most of the English-speaking countries on that list, and plus a few French people as well. Main demographics: 25 to 34-year-olds, followed not so far behind by the 35 to 44-year-olds, and 90% male, which is actually one of the lowest percentages. Like I think it used to be like 97% dudes or something. So we're slowly getting a little bit more balance into things, but welcome along. I don't really care what age, gender, nationality you are. If you're into your rugby, you're in the right place, hopefully. Also, some thanks to the patrons who support the channel and keep the thing afloat, especially to Angus, Jack McHugh, and Matt Barrett. And to some new people who came along in the month of October. That's Jerome Devitt, Reese Braid, Ellen Manson, Louise, and Exile Dave. So welcome along to you guys too. I'll put a link to Patreon down in the description. A little bit of extra content there. And as I said, kind of helps keep the lights on here at the headquarters of the 2 Cents Rugby Empire, which I say in not all seriousness, but it does indeed keep the lights on. That part is serious. Also, all the people who did the buy me a beer thing, man, you guys have been incredibly generous. The amount of people who appreciated all the match previews and reviews during the World Cup, phenomenal support. So thank you guys for that. That means the world, basically. Yeah, I love all the comments. I love getting into the banter and whatnot. It's really an awesome place to be. I generally think the community here is pretty good. Like, you guys in the comments are pretty good. There's not too many idiots who are just looking to stir up rubbish. Like, if you compare it to Facebook and whatnot, it can be pretty horrendous. So, yeah, I love having you guys along. The rugby news stuff. Eddie Jones saga. Eddie Jones, kind of a love him or hate him guy. I've always leaned towards the fact that I don't mind his press conferences, even if he does stir the pot, because sometimes he gets asked pretty inane questions. And I've always kind of felt like he's got something up his sleeve. And I don't know what the things are like in the background there at Aussie Rugby. I'm assuming it's pretty toxic. But the Eddie Jones thing has been an absolute shambles. And if he ends up going to Japan, I think any respect that I had for that guy is pretty much gone. I know he still wants a job. He's not quite 65, or whatever the retirement age is for Australians. But to come along after Dave, I mean, you would have had conversations with World Rugby. Basically get Dave Rennie sacked. Come along, chuck out all the veterans. Don't give them their kind of moment that they would have been building up to for 4 years. Take the youngsters. Don't get out of your pool. Then come back home, resign, and then go to, if he goes to Japan. I mean, that's just awful if that's what happens. Maybe Aussie Rugby's better off without him. I think clearly they would have been better off with Dave Rennie, but obviously hindsight's 2020. But yeah, man, it's been bad. It's been really, really bad. I think Steve Larkham is the favourite to take over. Apparently Michael Cheika might also be interested. I don't think Cheika is the answer personally. I think he did all right with Argentina, but I still think they were not kind of the finished article, especially on offence. Steve Larkham, I haven't been 100% sold on his coaching, but he has, I think, gotten a wee bit better. Initially when he was with the Brumbies, I didn't think they played that flash rugby. But yeah, I do think he's getting better at his job, and sometimes that's just what happens with experience. Andy Friend, who's recently left Connacht, is also one of the candidates. I think he's a pretty good coach. Dan McKellar's name's been bandied about, but I think he's on some massive deal with Leicester for a few years. So unless Aussie Rugby wants to do another massive payout, I don't think he's a contender. But yeah, we'll kind of have to wait and see what happens. With the Rugby World Cup in Australia in 4 years, this next appointment, they can't muck it up. They need to make a good decision. Some people talking about Ian Foster potentially as well, but I think that's probably less likely. What else? The World Rugby Awards have been announced. Things like the Try of the Year, Men's Player of the Year, Women's Player of the Year, Sevens Players of the Year, and Dream Team of the Year and whatnot. I should say these rewards are fine. I take them with a little bit of a grain of salt, and maybe I'm being a bit of a snob because, anytime I like to do like a Dream Team or a Team of the Week or something, I try to make as much of it as possible like data-based. I love looking at the stats because some guys who didn't do all the flashy stuff have done something incredible. They've won a bunch of turnovers or, made a heap of tackles or something like that. Doesn't get, maybe the same exposure as someone who scored a couple of tries kind of thing, or, had one big line break or something like that. So that's why I say, like, the World Rugby Awards, as far as I'm aware, are basically chosen by an awards panel, and there's different panels for each of the awards. Some of them overlap, but it's like, I think 5 or 6 or maybe 8 people who basically just put a vote in. They shortlist and they put a vote in. I'm not convinced those people watch that much rugby. I mean, I know they watch all the big games. They certainly watch their own teams. And again, I don't say that to be a snob. I feel like there could be a structure to the awards which would probably give you more fair results, and that like no props ever get nominated for nothing is what I'm saying. So I feel like the awards, you can kind of take them for what they are. They're a bit of a pat on the back from your peers, but I don't think they are as complete as they could be. But for what they are, they've chosen Adi Save as World Player of the Year. He's a hell of a pick because he's been genuinely pretty incredible. They picked Andy Farrell as Coach of the Year, and he's had a great record. Barring that quarterfinal exit, it's been kind of all rosy for the Irishman. Grand Slam win down here in NZ. Rohe Demont won the Women's Award. I haven't watched enough of the women's game this year with the World Cup on to really comment, but I know last year she was certainly incredible. Mark Talia gets the Breakthrough Award. He certainly stepped up to be one of the kind of most devastating wingers in World Rugby, so I'm fine with that. Duan van der Merwe got the fans vote for the Try of the Year versus England. He beat a whole bunch of defenders in that game. I think Rodrigo Isgro got the Sevens Award, but again, I don't watch Sevens, so I can't really comment on him, but I know he switched to a bit of 15s, but maybe didn't quite have the same impact that he had with the old Sevens. But yeah, no South Africans in any of those kind of major awards. And then the Dream Team I looked at, also seem to be pretty void of South African players, which is a weird one, seeing as they just won the Rugby World Cup. But as I said, the dream team, as far as I'm aware, is, I know the try of the year is voted for by fans, but the dream team, I think, is just that panel who just kind of pick a bunch of people based on who think they played well. So, yeah, it doesn't really maybe go through a rigorous kind of bit of scrutiny. I'm not sure how much data they are presented for how much they choose kind of thing. But, yeah, I don't mean to belittle the effort of these people, but sometimes you see pundits commenting on teams they don't watch that often, and you can tell they don't watch them that often. So that's just people with busy lives. Not everyone spends all their bloody life watching rugby like some of us. But yeah, that's the World Rugby Awards. Who else do you guys think should have got the awards? And lastly, oh goodness me, New Zealand Rugby complaining about the final. Honestly, at the last World Cup when we went out to England, I thought, man, we're a really mature country. Some of you other guys are big sore losers. New Zealand took the semi-final exit, I think, pretty well. Maybe because we were just well beaten and there was no way to complain about it. But goodness me, if we haven't had complaints every day. The leading article on the news, at least this website I was reading, was something like New Zealand or All Blacks demand answers from World Rugby about the final. Like, man, in a close game where there's a bunch of, like when it's as close as that, 1 point game, when both sides have had a chance to win the game, missed goal kicks, like I mentioned in previous videos, or, missed lineouts, lots of drop ball. I mean, South Africa probably blew a chance at the start of the second half. If they had lost, they could have been looking back to that moment as a moment they lost the game. There's going to be 50-50 moments. Sometimes you don't win 50-50. So I think it stinks of sore losery. Personally, I can't stand it. I'm assuming it's getting a lot of engagement online for New Zealand news sources, getting a bunch of clicks from angry Kiwis. But yeah, come on, man. Congratulate your opponent, shake their hand, have a beer, have a yarn. That's it. But anyway, we will see what happens, if anything, from that. Also, if you really want to support the channel, if you've already subscribed and liked and all that jazz, feel free to check out my other channel, which is 2 Cents on Tour. Totally not rugby related, barring the odd appearance of an Ospreys jacket or a Leinster jersey. There might be a Stormers jersey, which appears in a later video. I can't remember. But, yeah, traveling around China, speaking Chinese to some Chinese people in China, seeing some sights, sneaking into a university which wouldn't let me in, going to see an old warship which they'd salvaged up from the Yangtze River, getting invited to a stranger's house within like 30 seconds of meeting her. There's some random stuff on there. If you would be so kind, if you have a free 15 minutes, half an hour, check out that channel. It would mean a lot if you do that. But yes, cheers for coming along. Rugby coverage will continue, URC and other rugby as well. Hope you guys are taking care of yourselves. Cheers for October. It's been massive. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.